Hi, and welcome to the Schuster Center webinar series. And I'm Dr. Mike Edwards, and today I'm going to be talking about the Through the Red Sea workshops. And we have several of them coming up in the next 6 months. And I'm going to talk to you about the progression of why I created the workshops, why I wrote the book Through the Red Sea, and why this may be of interest to you. When I first got out of dental school, like so many, I just took any job I could find. And it happened to be in an insurance style practice. Within 6 months, a classmate of mine purchased a practice. Same thing. It was in several insurance companies. And what we found is that the practice just began to get faster and faster. We were seeing 5 to 10 emergencies a day. We were working every other Saturday, 1 evening a week. I commuted from about an hour away. So by the time I would get home in the evenings after writing up charts, it'd be very late. And I kind of felt like the commercial with the Dunkin' Donuts baker, and he's like, have I already made the donuts? Like I'm passing myself in the morning when I go to the office. But we found that we're working really hard and there wasn't enough profit to really save for retirement. The practice wasn't growing and we weren't doing the kind of work we wanted to do. It seemed like we were always treating emergencies, working in blood. People were getting worse over time. The practice was running us and we didn't feel rewarded. Debt payments were a heavy burden because not only did we want to have the practice, we wanted to upgrade technology almost immediately. It was a paper-based office. We wanted computers. We wanted digital x-ray. We wanted lasers. We wanted new hand pieces. We didn't want to have a manual chuck. You know, we wanted all the latest things. So all of a sudden we could have equipment loans. Now, what happens today in insurance-based practices is that by jumping through the insurance hoops, it results in a lot of shorter appointments. Treatment plans are based on yearly maximums or maybe predetermination or allowed procedures. There's a lot of write-offs. I had one doctor I recently talked to that said she had $800,000 in treatment plans for Delta patients in her practice and was writing off over $440,000 of it. You've got to see multiple people an hour to make that kind of process work. All this leads to stress. We're overworked. We're frustrated. And if any consultant you hire helps you try and boost production and see more people per hour, use expanded functions assistants, hire another hygienist, or become a hygiene-driven practice. But if we listen to one of the wealthiest men in the world, this was from the Charlie Rose show, he said busy has become the new stupid. But in dentistry, we're just driven that way. An insurance-dependent model of practice needs to collect 1.5 to 2 times more than a fee-for-service practice. More on that to come. And a hygiene assistant model has higher staff compensation, and you tend to have problem-focused care. The hygienists don't even have enough time to really enter into a relationship with patients. It's very transactional. You do what the insurance covers. You get them in, get them out within the time frame you have allotted, turn your room over, and you got the next person. There's no sharing plaque scores, bleeding scores. It's just cleaning off the tartar, identifying new decay, and having the doctor come in and bless the treatment plan. An expanded functions assistant model is very popular as well, but you're lowering the quality of care. They're already doing this in medicine. This is coming in dentistry. You have to prepare yourself. The country is moving towards socialized medicine. Dentistry is going to follow. There are areas of the country where expanded functions, hygienists can run their own style of practice. But they do not have the depth of knowledge that we do. Those types of expanded functions modeling is done to treat ill people, emergency care, and people who wouldn't want your best service anyway. You can raise the fees, which a lot of practices do. They think that's going to help, but all it does is it hurts your fee-for-service patients who don't have insurance. And then with your dental insurance, it causes you to have higher write-offs. So is it any wonder that doctors think that they can just produce more and all their problems will go away? That a profit and loss report shows where the money how much money you made, but you don't always have it left over. You don't understand how to run it. Nobody ever showed us how to run a practice. After you pay all the expenses, you just take what's left over, which sometimes isn't much. Submitting to medical insurance will increase case acceptance. People ask me that all the time. They say they're going to get into airway because medical insurance will cover it. Well, that's a lot more fun to deal with than dental insurance. It's not. If I buy more technology, I'll increase my net profit. Well, you will increase your debt service. And many times they'll tell you, well, you only need 7 scans a month to pay for that cone beam. And that's what you're taking now, so it works. Well, no, you broke even. There's no profit there. And if you don't take 7, now you're looking around trying to get 7 scans a month instead of, owning the technology outright and then really reaping the benefits. Or thinking you don't need business training at all, I'll organically change as things grow. All these things are what I did when I got out of school and what I hear so many when they get out of school, and it's because nobody ever taught us this. We just stepped into an industry, we stepped into a river that was already rushing in the opposite direction that we wanted to go. And you end up with a higher overhead. So if you compare the overhead of many practices I deal with compared to our model, which is around 50% of an overhead model, a 65% overhead practice is going to have to produce $42,000 more than $100,000. A 70% overhead practice will need $66,000 more to net the same as the $100,000 practice. And most of the practices I see for the first time are in the 75% range. They have to do double what we have to do, and they are truly in the rat race. And you know what? If you win the rat race, you're still a rat. But that's all we know. We all started out as rats out of dental school, just scurrying, trying to find the maze to find the practice that would take us in. We didn't know any better. And some of us never go beyond that. 95% of dental practices in America are mass market, fast-paced, transactional-based dental practices where people get worse over time. And those are perfect places to have expanded functions assistants, have more hygienists. It's perfect for that. Delegate more and more of the work to people under you, just like a medical model. You've got several layers of nurses now. And only when you have a problem that nobody can figure out do you ever get to see the doctor. I was lucky when I was a year out of school that I found the Schuster Center model. And the Schuster model was based on decades of research in human and organizational development done by Abraham Maslow into healthy and successful individuals. This research became the foundation for the human motivation model, but Dr. Schuster used it to form this Schuster model. And what he found is that once the practices got control of money, which used Dr. Schuster's overhead model, they began to get profitable. They created a cash flow model that also had a savings account built in, or what we call power account. That once finances were under control, then we could actually take control of our time and organization. We had some confidence that we could make changes and the whole ship wouldn't sink. And once we get control of time and organization, then we start to say, well, now I can focus on relationships with people and I can get into a collaborative agreement with them on what it is they want. You can enter into master planning with people and not only plan for now, but plan for the future. And if you don't do this now, this sounds so corny and odd. And it did to me in the beginning to even ask these type of questions. But when you get the people who resonate with that offering, they love it. And this is what they want. It's what people really want. Once you form relationships with people, you become a master communicator and you get people who are committed to the treatment that you and the patient decide upon, but you also get a team of people who support you and become stewards of the practice. All these things have the potential to lead to a very fulfilling career where you have a practice that's congruent with your deepest values, where you move from money success to being significant in somebody's life and achieving a real freedom that most people don't achieve. The Maslow model, this was postulated first in the 40s and then researched heavily for many decades afterward. says that people can't focus on belongingness or love needs or esteem needs if they can only have food and water. So the bottom four are just basic needs and psychological needs. We have to have our basic needs or survival needs met first before we can start to focus on relationships with other people. And once we have relationships with other people, we start to think, well, wait a minute, I want to be something better than everybody else. I want to stand out. Now we have esteem needs. Once we get esteem needs, we have the potential to self-actualize and to really live our soul's purpose. These are just natural principles. They're natural principles of business. They're natural principles of investing and of nature that Dr. Schuster used to create the center model. He studied with the greats of his time to build this model. It's been studied by MIT. It's been studied by Robert Fritz. Robert Fritz has worked with the organization. It's all in Dr. Schuster's book, The Science of Creating Wealth. He created a model because it allows us to see what's happening. We use models whenever we show periodontal models in hygiene. It's easier to see and visualize complex things. Principles and natural laws were used to launch this rocket into space, escape our gravity, dock with the space station, and then have a rocket booster land on a craft in the middle of the ocean. So why not use these same natural principles in your practice and in your life? A current management student wrote, I've only been in the program less than 6 months, but already my overhead has come into line. I try not to think about how much money I've lost over the years through poor management, listening to my friends, podcasts, what I read in magazines or journals, and instead I'm just so thankful that I now know. I know how to manage my practice. I have time now to actually eat a full lunch, to just be with patients and not be stressed or afraid about money. I can't believe how much money and the lack of drove my decision making and recommendations in the past. I got a lot of work to do, but I get glimpses of what the future can be like, and I'm excited about dentistry again. And what I want is getting clearer and clearer. So what I wanted back in the day when I went through the Schuster Center is I wanted more technical dentistry. Well, that's where most people go. Most people start out thinking, if I just learn more technical dentistry, I'll be able to do more technical dentistry. So I went and studied with Dr. Dawson and Dr. Wilkerson at the Dawson Academy. And there I am with Pete, and then my first partner, Cindy Osmond. After many years, I took courses at the OBI Foundation, which is a residency in minimally invasive dentistry. And it's really a cookbook approach on how to restore just about anything that comes in your practice. But when I got back home and I tried to implement it, I ran into obstacles. Insurance was forcing me to write off so much. They had changed their repayment scheme that I'm trying to talk to people about high-level dentistry, and I can't, because my time has really been lost. So I called the insurance company and I said, you know, you're writing off way more than you ever have in the past. What's the story? And she said, well, this is our new scheme, and what we're recommending is that you have your hygienist see 3 to 4 people an hour. And I said, well, that's really a factory type situation. That's not what we do. I'm taking this residency. I'm trying to give people this great offering where they need less dentistry over their lifetime and they can preserve their teeth. She said, yeah, but with this model, the hygienist will remove the tartar and the assistants will polish the teeth, take the x-rays, and do the fluoride. I said, well, I'm not doing that. And then the representative from the insurance company said, well, you could have your assistants do more work and you can see 3 or 4 people an hour. I said, that's not the kind of work I do. She says, well, our most popular option is you raise your fees dramatically, 20 or 30%, so that people without insurance will compensate for the ones that do. And then when our members are out of their benefits, they're $1,500 a year, they'll pay your higher fee. Well, I said no to that. And a year later, no, they don't pay your higher fee when they're out of benefits. Now, the insurance companies are still dictating what treatment you can do and what fee you can write. The St. Louis Dental Society, because so many doctors were in the same position as me, were really complaining about it. They released a Kodak study that an accountant had redone for dental practice. And if you don't know, the Kodak study was a famous study on pricing done in the 70s by the Kodak company. And they found that a dental office with a 50% overhead and a 34% doctor salary and a 10% profit margin, if they cut their selling price by 2%, you have to increase your sales volume by 25% to make the same money. If you cut it by 5%, it's a 100% sales increase. A 7% cut is a 233% increase in sales. And 8% is 400. This is uncomfortable, I know. And a 9% means you have to do a 900% increase in sales to make the same money. The reason it's uncomfortable is I was writing off 30 to 50% of my fees. How the hell could I go fast enough to make the same money? I couldn't. You're forced into doing what the insurance company wants you to. Now, when that happened, we had to have a come to Jesus moment at the office. There is a reason that God guided Moses and the Jews through the desert, for a generation to be born. He wanted a generation born free, never knowing a life of slavery. But why? Thinking back to Maslow and what I told you already, in order for us to evolve as individuals, we have to have needs met. And the first needs are survival, food, shelter, and warmth. The second, safety and security. Well, what's more safer than being in a palace of Egypt? But what happened was natural. Once their needs are met, they long for something more. That's our nature. We want to belong. We want to stand out. We want freedom. And slavery robs a person of all dignity and humanity. But every so often, enough people rise up against the power structure and they leave it, much to the shock and dismay of the overseer. So God provided a cloud for the Jews out in the desert to live for a generation, was born out of slavery. They were born in freedom. And then he led them to the Red Sea. Pharaoh pinned them against the sea, and Moses had, in the Jewish story, Moses had to go out into the sea before it parted. See, the insurance companies think they have us, but their relationship with their customers, our patients, is transactional. We have the ability to get to the heart of what the patients want, and I guarantee you it isn't what benefits cover. People want to be proud of their smile, a huge part of their self-esteem and well-being. They want to be pain-free. They want the least amount of dentistry possible over their lifetime. And they want a good return on their investment in their health when they make it. People want to chew their food and choose what they want to eat, not to be limited by their teeth. In short, they want freedom. They want certainty. And as the dentist, wouldn't you like a patient like that? But guess what? You have them. You just have to talk to them longer than 2 to 4 minutes in hygiene chair. This is the reason that I detail my transition to a fee-for-service practice in the book, Through the Red Sea. I wanted to help as many people as I could achieve the freedom that you want for yourself and for you to lead your patients to that same freedom. One of the quotes in the book that I've written was, to achieve the freedom you want, you must first honor it in the other. And we see evidence of it here at our office every day. People who employ the Red Sea workshop get these type of outcomes. You get to master your work. You take all this work, if you don't do it on a regular basis, you're always going to be fumbling and figuring it out. You have to do it to master it. People want your best offering, so you're going to get to deliver it. Red Sea outcomes is to get a process to get treatment accepted. We go through all this, and I'm going to show you. We help you create a predictable workflow, so every time the cases are coming out predictably. How to manage many cases at the same time. You know, when you first start out doing more complex dentistry, you have one case going. Usually you have it right on your desk so everybody can see it, and you know where it's at all times. That's easy. But once you get 4 or 5 or 6 of them, it gets a little harder to manage, and you start to worry about things, and things start to fall through the cracks. How to create a referral network to get more of those type of patients. How to transition a practice to a more fee-for-service work. I'm not saying that you have to drop it all and go to fee-for-service, but how to transition it just to have more of a mix of fee-for-service work. And then if you want to transition completely to fee-for-service, we can have a strategy session about that. Create an outstanding offering. The woman you see in the picture here with the bottle of sparkling white wine with gold flakes in it, which is our celebration gift at the end of treatment, and those are my 2 main assistants. She had been seen at a chiropractor for years for her neck, like twice a week for years. Her husband was so happy that when we got a resolution. And this was one of the more expensive cases I've ever done. And she's just happy as she can be. Now, when I first made this transition, many of my friends and colleagues, they'd say, well, you can do that because you live in a small rural town. I live in a suburb and there's a lot of competitions. And I thought about that. I live in a town of 10,000 people. The town next to me, 7 minutes away, has 25,000. There's over 40 dentists in a 15-mile radius of my office. We have corporations, DSOs, group practices. We got a lot of individuals doing the expanded functions things. I've met doctors who live in city centers at the Red Sea Workshops. They've got offices in the ocean, by the ocean in California. They're in the middle of nowhere in Kansas. And they're all doing more complete dentistry today than they were when we first met. In fact, the common response is, no one wants complete dentistry. To which I respond, I guess they only want it in low to low middle income small towns in Missouri. And we know that's not true. Once they get beyond that, the next response is usually, well, you can do it because you're you. You're more charismatic than me. But it wasn't always like that. What we see is that I had a lot of no's and a lot of failures to be able to build the system I built. Because I follow a process. I follow a process for bringing a patient into the practice for the first time. I follow a process for presenting cases. And every time I'd get a no, I'd analyze it and I'd make changes. And I track those improvements. In fact, the process I share in the Red Sea Workshop is like the 15th or 20th version of the work I first started. I created a structure that honors a person's freedom to choose all along the way. And all the people that I've told you about, California, middle of Kansas, these people are all today doing more complete dentistry than they ever thought possible. In fact, the common call I get about 3 or 4 months after a workshop is, I'm overwhelmed. So the structure of anything determines its results. And organizations, like people, either advance or they oscillate. They either grow, they stagnate, and they die. So are you giving them an opportunity to grow? If we don't do anything different, we can't expect a different result. Structure determines behavior. Structure determines results. When we change the approach, the sequence of events, the dialogue, the information presented, the order of the information, we will have a change in behavior and a possibility of a new future. The structure of a practice is either planned for the type of care the doctor wants to do or has organically evolved over time by others, usually insurance companies. So there's many different types of practices, and the structures are in place to deliver more of that type of practice. For instance, a level 2 practice is more of a problem-focused practice. It's insurance-based care, hygiene-driven, and an expert model of dental care. So basically, the doctor is going to prepare the treatment plan with little dialogue to the patient. And they'll just say, these are my recommendations, here's what you need, here's what your insurance covers, go ahead and schedule. This is the predominant style of practice in the United States today. If you were to read a hygiene exam notation in the chart, it would be all the problems and all the things that are wrong. The doctor notes are usually a laundry list of what's wrong. Patients lay there adding up the issues and the mystery of dentistry and the dental code language, which further separate the patient from the reality of their health. Problem-focused practices don't just stop with the patient visit. Staff meetings are about what isn't working, what's wrong. There's a problem-focused orientation in life for a level 2 type practice. They tend to behave more like a pharmacist. Higher volume, they usually have higher overhead. Patients want to stay in network and expect little to no out of pocket. I had a doctor recently tell me that he's got 3 hygienists, and one of the hygienists isn't very good. I said, why is she not good? Things tend to blow up in her room. What does blow up mean? Well, it means that when I go in there to do the exam, there's something that either needs a root canal or extraction. And I go, and they've been coming to getting their teeth cleaned every 6 months? He said, yes. I go, okay, this is the problem with a hygiene-driven practice. The doctor is pushing responsibility down to other people because he doesn't have time to be in there. But listen, your people in this environment, they're getting something out of it. You're getting your needs met by being in that environment. Your adrenaline's pumping all day. Usually the doctor loves it. And if it slows that down, they're upset, even though they'll say otherwise. They're getting in their mind security because people are coming through the door. They might be making just enough to support their lifestyle. Or they feel needed because everyone has problems and they can fix it. Something's always breaking. They get to be the entertainer. They have to be, really. They only get a few minutes to make a great impression and win the patient over. This level 2 offering is 95% of dentists in America. That's about 200,000 practices. We cannot let those that work for us dictate the level of care we provide. We have to decide what it is if we want to get off the treadmill. We have to set this level as the doctor. We set the level of excellence, the patient experience, and the model of care. And it starts with how patients are greeted. It starts with not accepting cone cuts, poor exposed radiographs. It starts with not accepting alginates that have thin areas and tears. You get what you expect. You get what you allow. And it begins with you as the doctor putting your philosophy of care down on paper and letting your team know what you believe. And then you give them a chance to believe it with you. The next level of practice is a level 3 style practice, which is based on partnerships, partnering with people. It's slower paced. You work collaboratively with patients in a creative orientation. So instead of what's wrong, we look at what's wrong, what's right, and we look at what are the ramifications if nothing is done, and what do we want to do? How do we want the future to be? These tend to be one-to-one style practices. Hygiene is individualized and based on the patient's level of health. People are willing to pay a fair fee, and they expect insurance not to cover everything. They base their decisions on their values and desired outcomes, and the office tends to have smaller teams. Finally, the level 4 practice, I call it the journey back home or the journey back to health. This is full body care. Usually these doctors have a very well defined referral network. They tend to be at the top of their game. They're very well versed in continuing education and various aspects of dentistry. And they have mastered an aspect of dentistry and then work with a team to treat the people. Hygiene's individualized and takes into account systemic health. People are willing to pay whatever's necessary, and they don't cut on insurance at all. They make decisions based on their beliefs and your abilities. These offices tend to have a dedicated, committed team, and many of our performance coach doctors have. The most success right now, even during COVID, are full level 3 and 4 type practices. Robert Britt said, if you limit your choices only to what seems possible or reasonable, you will disconnect yourself from what you truly want, and all that's left is a compromise. So when I finished the OBI residency, I came back and I wanted to do this. We call it the Mountaintop Experience. I wanted to have these larger cases to do. And I had to really refine my process. And I immediately, best way to, when it starts to work, the best way to do it is to really ingrain it in our being and on the team's being, was to write out a manual of how I got here. And I started passing it around to some friends of mine. And pretty soon they say, hey, can we come and hang out and learn what you're doing? Because we are not having success. And one by one, they started doing more comprehensive cases. People started dropping out of insurance. So the workshops got better and better. Now we use art, and we actually have several speakers that we work with during the workshops, but we use art as a medium to discuss dentistry and structure and design of systems. Here you see a famous local artist. He was just on the cover of the New Yorker, using the Fibonacci sequence in art and discussing how he tells a story and how he paints a picture so that someone could learn the story as they're looking at the painting. Because the point is when people are telling us their story and what they want, we can't really know what they want until we can feel it ourselves. So we spend a lot of time during the workshop in interview scenarios. We interview each other, live patients come in, we interview them, And we help not only get a clear picture in our mind of what the patient wants, we're also helping the patient clarify what it is they want in their mind. Very often they're using words they don't understand. And the last thing you want to do is spend a lot of time and effort and then deliver care that doesn't match what the patient wanted. After the workshop, we even form text groups where we continue the conversation. We have a few more calls, and there's typically a mentor in the group that will also follow up with you individually to keep the learning going and ensure implementation. Live patients are brought in where we can work with the hygienist and see how she is coaching patients. Because what we want is, and you'll see this in the next few slides, we want people to get healthy before we start to talk to them about comprehensive dentistry. If they're not healthy and can't maintain it, it won't last. That's why we also offer hygiene workshops. These workshops, they started out with just a few people. They've gotten bigger and bigger. And now we've limited them to 4 people so that we can really focus on each individual who is there for the learning. There are always going to be some auditors and some mentors there. So we have a fun time, a fun group. We go to dinner every night together. Here we are at the restaurant after class. And what's interesting, this group, I think, came through the Red Sea workshop maybe 3 years ago. Every person in the photograph is now a fee-for-service practice. Now, a relationship-based practice, like what we're talking about, is 600 to 1,000 times more profitable than an insurance-focused or value-style practice. Insurance really becomes non-existent in the conversations as people plan their one-to-one care. Patients in hygiene, every day, every hour, are coming in healthy. The only ones who aren't are your new patients, and that's great. So how hard is it for a hygienist to run behind when they're cleaning a clean mouth? That gives them time to really get into a coaching relationship with the patient and decide what is it they want next. Healthy people make healthier decisions. But for the time being, and this is what we help you do in the workshop, when you first start doing this work, for a while, you're going to be living in 2 worlds. You're still going to have the insurance style practice while you're building the comprehensive restorative practice. I compare it to people who want to start, which is very popular. I don't know why it's popular right now, but some people want to own a cupcake shop. They say, I'm going to use my grandma's cupcake recipe. They're the best cupcakes. I miss them. I miss my grandma. I'm going to start a cupcake shop. But you don't quit your day job to do it. Well, first, you have an idea of what you want to create. You get a logo, you create a website. You may not even have the cupcakes yet. You're just creating the idea of this whole thing. You're doing it in the evenings, you're doing it on the weekends. You build your bakery business plan template, which is because you think the cupcakes are so good, all you have to do is make great cupcakes and I'm going to have great business. And people are just going to show up, they're going to shop, and they're going to say, I love your cupcakes. It's a success. That's no different than what we thought in dentistry. And we know that that is the biggest entrepreneurial myth there is. That when we're entrepreneurs, we wear 3 hats. We're the baker, the technician in dentistry, we're the manager, and we're also the entrepreneur. So we are doing all 3 of those jobs. And what we know now is that for us to really have a successful business and get out of the commodity market, we have to focus on experiences for people, not just a transaction. We have to focus on the needs of the customer. And people will pay a premium for that. Just ask Jilly of Jilly's Cupcake Bar and Cafe in St. Louis. Here you see a waffle cupcake, which is incredible. I've had it. The cupcakes are incredible. Each one's a work of art. And of course, they do custom. They listen to what you want and they will create a custom cupcake for you. That is an experience. You will pay a lot of money. I don't know how much money I paid for the cupcake because I don't care. I want the cupcake. So the path to really starting that second or more complete style of dentistry that can give you the power to transition to fee-for-service, we could call it the noble middle path, if you like, but it's a hybrid practice. It's a practice within a practice where you get to spend time doing what you've learned. You've taken so many courses to learn how to do. You begin small, like the cupcake store. Maybe for the cupcake store, it might be open on the weekends only. For you, that means Friday. Maybe it's Friday morning for a couple hours or Thursday afternoon to begin with until it grows. And now all of a sudden you've got 1 or 2 patients, and now you do maybe a full day, maybe a full Thursday or a full Friday. And slowly it'll grow until you're in a position of power and you can start to replace volume days with one-to-one days. We show you how to do all that. As you do more deeper service style dentistry, you're going to feel a space open up. Yes, you're going to lose some people who are not engaged and don't want what you do. But the people who stay are going to be extremely engaged. Your team is going to start functioning at a higher level because they'll see what's possible. You'll have hygienists creating health with patients and helping people make healthier decisions. And you'll begin attracting people through referrals and through a referral network you'll set up that want your best offering, have a higher appreciation for their health and for dentistry. So the key to really doing more comprehensive dentistry on your existing patients is a robust hygiene coaching experience. So we cover all this in the workshop, and we spend a lot of time on it, but how to get health data points for patients so they can assimilate the data and understand it, how to process it, so they can create a health goal or a health outcome. We agree on how we're going to support them on doing it. We identify what are the drivers, what are the obstacles, what support or information do we need to give them. And then at each recare interval, we're re-engaging, reassessing, reconnecting, and reaffirming the outcome they want, reinvigorating their purpose in the relationship and reimagining what's possible. But we're always on the lookout for the invitation. And the invitation, I mean, is I hear hygienists ask about health goals all the time, and it seems awkward. What we really want to know is, why is it important that you're here today? How do you want to work together to get what you want today and in coming years, and then even further out, many years? Target is simply a goal or an output of a process we go through, but an outcome is so much more. An outcome is like 4D. It's the effect of the output on the person, the effect of achieving the target on the person. And an outcome might have multiple targets. It is not one-dimensional. So we have to get really clear about what the patient wants, why they want it, how their life will be different once they get it. We're clarifying it for us in our minds and for them in their minds. Because once they make a decision about what they want, and just to make a decision means to cut off all others. You know, in judicial circles, a decision means the final judgment. We need to get the patient to the decision point, but they can't see how to get there because you're only spending in hygiene 2 to 4 minutes. So there's a missing step, missing information. One of the ways we do it is each patient at every recare visit, we look at 4 areas: soft tissue, hard tissue on the bottom. Then if we move up, chewing system and systemic health. In each one we're looking at, did things get better or get worse or stay the same over the last period? And we're not looking at just today and last time, we're looking over years. And you want to take a screenshot of this slide. The next thing we do is, depending on how they come in, and let's just stay with hygiene visits, if at the hygiene visit, we invite them back for a consultation and they enter into a consultative process. That consultative process then could lead to a records appointment and then another consultation after that to discuss those records, and then to say, are we going to take the next step? If an emergency appointment comes in, first thing we have to do is get them out of pain, create health, then enter into a consultative process. You'll see that health first is a key step in this process. So once we get a process in place to help people see the path, by catering to how they process information, and by a proven process, we dramatically increase the patient's ability to decide. We're giving them enough information to make a choice. I mean, if you believe in informed consent, they really have to know everything. We say yes to things in medicine all the time we don't understand. And we say no to things in dentistry that we don't understand the ramifications of. So if we believe in freedom for ourselves, we first got to honor it in the other. We give them the next step, and at each level, they can decide if this is important and impactful, and do we want to proceed? Do we want to look further? What record do we need to get next? What information? What needs to be read? Who needs to be consulted? This is the biggie. Who helps make decisions? Or is there anyone else we can speak to or speak with as we move forward? The last thing you want to do is spend several consultations discussing something and then find out that his wife is the one who decides if he can proceed. You want to go through this one time and learn as much as you can about how that person handles information and then cater to that. You get a defined process through the workshop. You'll see various elements at play with live patients, and after some time, you get home and you'll customize it and make it your own. Consultative process always starts with health first. Each consult relates to a structure, to a system. We gather records and data along the way on a pace that the patient approves of. We move the patient from unawareness to awareness, then using case examples from awareness to engagement. And then we do a simplified explanation of the treatment process, all in lay terms. And we move from engagement to action. In the workshop, you're going to see me do several different scenarios on how we present fees. This is an example of something I use when I'm doing comprehensive care, where there's 3 buckets for the treatment, and each bucket corresponds to a different fee structure. And when I get finished, the patient understands it. In fact, you'll even hear patients come in during the Red Sea workshop saying, I've saved my money for bucket 2, I'm ready. When can I schedule my bucket 3? I'm ready for that stage. So you'll hear all these things happen. Once a patient says yes, they understand the money, they understand what's involved, and they have made a decision, cut off all other possibilities. Now we have to manage the case. Now, if you have more than one large case going at any time, many offices seem to go off the rails. You see, a clipboard in the lab with a highlighter won't cut it anymore with these cases. We need full, thought-out plans, defined roles and responsibilities, due dates, tracking, conversations, all contained in one place, or it's going to go haywire. How many times do you search through emails looking for that exact one and that exact attachment, only to find out it's expired? In the workshop, we show you how to treat each case like a project in and of itself, which it actually is. We also show you how to work with your assistants on managing cases. This work has the potential to create a another level of professionalism in your workplace. Your team will get very confident in treating and caring for and managing these types of complex cases. In my office, the assistants choose the patients they're going to take on, so each one has a caseload, and the assistants then are responsible for supply checks before treatment days, ensuring lab slips are recorded and due dates are adhered to. In this photo, you see Beth analyzing a cross-mounted hinge axis transferred model that she has been in the lab half the morning creating several sets of models and ensuring each one is an exact match. So when practices are in a reactive or responsive orientation, people choose only what seems possible. You choose a process instead of an outcome. You often eliminate all the possibilities, so one choice remains. Very often it's manipulating patients or fear-based treatment planning. Whatever happens, happens. We're not making a choice. We're just going to let fate take over. Or it's a conditional choice, imposing preconditions before we make any changes. We'll go fee for service when this happens. Or we follow the masses and listen to podcasts. But when we choose a creative orientation, when we make a declaration of what we want to create, people often experience exhilaration, joy, hope, optimism, even through COVID circumstances. We get our brain and our subconscious to work on what it is we want to create. And when we make a formal choice, we activate the seeds of germination and all our energies align, and they set them into motion to your desired future. You might want to take a screenshot of this and ask yourself these questions and write them out. Some very famous people have, J.K. Rowling, for instance. It's our choices that show what we truly are far more than our abilities. When we make a decision, a choice, everything else melts away and you've given yourself direction. She writes, "It's impossible to live without failing at something. Unless you live so cautiously, you might as well not have lived at all, in which case you failed by default." This is the world's most successful author. Divorced with a restraining order, I wonder what she did. Destitute, she did only the work that mattered to her, and that was writing these books. She was living in her car, writing these books. Bo Eason wanted to be a pro football player since he was young. But not only wanted to be a pro football player, he wanted to be the best safety in the league. But he wasn't as big as any pro football player safety. But he had the complete support of his mother. Anyone who would say otherwise would be promptly shown the door. My son, who plays D1 college soccer, I can't tell you how many times we've heard, oh, not a lot of kids don't get to play in college. Only 1% of athletes play professionally. Well, when somebody said that to Bo Eason, his mom took him straight to the door and walked him out. She didn't want her kids to hear any negativity at all, only support. Bo Eason was cut time and again from football teams. In fact, he didn't make the college team. He lied to his parents that he was on the team, and when they came for a visit, he swiped some equipment from the equipment manager, and he made a deal with a teammate to get on the field for the last play. He details all this in a book called The Run of the Litter. But he says, don't let anyone tell you you can't do it. Don't make a plan B, go for plan A. This is my youngest, Mazda Joy, at a summer concert in Orange County. The Beach Boys with John Stamos on the drums. They asked her to come up and say Bob Aran. You get up and do it. If somebody offers you an amazing opportunity, but you're not sure how to do it, just say yes, and you'll learn how to do it later. Well, I'm giving you an amazing opportunity to join me here in my practice in November on the 13th and 14th. And if you can't make that one, we've got March 5th and 6th and May 14th and 15th of 2021. These are small workshops, and I'd love for you to join me. It's much cheaper than a lot of other workshops that you're going to see on this type of subject, because what I really want is for you to get the information and be able to implement it in your office. I want to lower the barrier for you to do this kind of work. I also do it out of my office, so I'm not renting out a hotel facility. I've got, the offer is, Chris Ellison, our enrollment counselor, is going to reach out to you after this webinar and set up a complimentary strategy call or schedule you for one of the upcoming workshops. She's worn many hats over the last 2 decades at the center and has a wealth of experience and knowledge. She's an outstanding enrollment counselor, she's a great listener, and she'll help you decide what the next best step is for you. So I invite you to book your planning session now. What have you got to lose, really? We're going to create the life you want to have, and don't let it just happen to you. So I look forward to hearing from you.